Hello guys, so I just saw the Mario Galaxy movie last night, and I've not really done any movie reviews on this channel, but I saw a lot of negativity on it from critics. And I've kind of wanted to make the occasional video about storytelling, movies, books, writing, world building, whatever, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about it. Because I think a lot of the negativity about the Mario movie is actually not merited. My reaction to the movie was genuinely mostly positive. To the point that first thing I did when I got home was write a Facebook post about how it's the greatest sequel I've seen in a long time. And I do genuinely mean that. I think last time I've had this positive of an opinion on a sequel was in Book 2 of Avatar The Last Airbender. Other sequels that come to mind would of course be Empire Strikes Back, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2, and Peter Jackson's adaptation of The Two Towers. Which that itself needs a disclaimer. I'm not saying that the Lord of the Rings movies are objectively better than the books, but the movie version of The Two Towers really serves the sequel role really well. Of course, the incredible cinema of the Battle of Helm's Deep is carrying a lot of the weight on that. My opinions on the books versus movies of The Lord of the Rings would be a much more nuanced thing. That would probably be its own separate video if I feel like doing that sometime. But okay, am I saying that the Mario Galaxy movie has as great of a story as Book 2 of Avatar Last Airbender, as great of a plot twist as The Empire Strikes Back, as great of cinema as The Two Towers, or as deep of characters as Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2? That would definitely be a no on all of those fronts. But the Mario Galaxy 2 is a near-perfect sequel to the Super Mario Bros. Movie that came out a few years ago. And I do admittedly feel like I need to justify that statement. And I will ultimately boil it down to one word: expectation. Now, it's definitely worth saying that this movie is not my kind of movie, not my preference of movie. I do like deeper movies. I like more meaningful movies. I like deep movies with deep meanings and deep questions and deep characterizations. I love how much Avatar The Last Airbender really gets into the psychology of every single one of their characters and how every single character feels so authentic and alive. And I like the extended version of Lord of the Rings, not because it's more Lord of the Rings, but because it gives the viewer more time to sit with the characters and really walk in their shoes. Like, my favorite part of the extended version of Lord of the Rings is just the extended walk to Helm's Deep. There's nothing happening there but character moments, and really good character moments there. It really feels like they're trying to be optimistic and preserve their humanity while fleeing for their lives. And it captures that juxtaposition in a flowery yet ominous way. Now, to really get into what I'm talking about with expectation, we've kind of got to go back. Because there's a little bit of a controversy when the first Super Mario Bros. Movie came out. Because the Super Mario Bros. Movie, it came out in a time when there was a lot of controversy about the quality of modern movies in general. You know, we're still living in the wake of the massive disappointment of the Star Wars sequels. And a lot of the criticism of the Star Wars sequels was about the shallow characters, about the lackluster storyline, about how much it broke the franchise and contradicted other stuff, and then of course the political messaging in it. But so why is it after we spent so many years criticizing the Star Wars sequels for having poor characters, poor story, poor writing, all that stuff, that then the Super Mario Bros. Movie comes out, and the same people who are criticizing the Star Wars sequels were praising the Super Mario Bros. Movie? Why is that? Did the Super Mario Bros. Movie have better characters, a better story, more realistic action? And the answer is just frankly, no, it did not. But that's where I'm bringing it back around to that word expectation. There is a massive different expectation when you go in to see one kind of movie versus another. For example, there's one expectation when you go to see a comedy movie, and there's another expectation when you go to see a horror movie. So what are the expectations when you go to see a Star Wars movie? Well, obviously you expect Jedi, you expect lightsabers, you expect space battles, you expect a grand adventure, fun time, and you expect to immerse yourself into a galaxy far, far away. And to many degrees, the Star Wars sequels really did capture all those things. But the original Star Wars trilogy was more than just lightsabers, space action, and adventure. They were revolutionary cinema, but they were also more than that. There was meaning behind them. A New Hope was mainly just adventures and cinema, but there was also the question about a lost era, before a savage regime like the Empire rose to take power. But then The Empire Strikes Back really expanded that to be more about the temptations of the dark side, family legacy, and place of belonging, and how you know you're on the right side of things. Then Return of the Jedi makes us ask if people can be redeemed or not. And really that entire throne room confrontation between Luke, Vader, and Palpatine is an absolute masterclass in tension. And in many ways, the Star Wars prequels really carried on that legacy. Fun, adventure, action, lightsabers, space combat. But yet the prequels still invited us to experience a galaxy far, far away. The prequels really expanded the lore of the galaxy of the time before the Empire. It showed us the beautiful prosperity of a time before tyranny. It really makes you pause and wonder the how great societies collapse in such a way. The Star Wars sequels are so lush and bright and vibrant, and then the original trilogy is so gloomy and dark, and in many ways, that's just the power of a dark, evil regime. I'm always shocked whenever I see pictures or videos or hear stories of Iran before the IRGC came in. That's not the Iran that I grew up seeing. And shocking in just the very same way that the Star Wars galaxy is so different in the time that Luke grew up versus when Anakin grew up. That is the power of a dark, evil, tyrannical regime. And the Star Wars prequels really capture that fall of a great society really well. So these are the things that Star Wars is known for. Great cinema, great storytelling, great characters, lightsabers, space action, deep metaphysical questions. In the Star Wars sequels, they succeeded in many ways to the aesthetics of what makes Star Wars, but they really dropped the ball in the things that made Star Wars truly great masterpiece. The characters, the stories, the symbolisms, the applications into real life. And so I think that is why there is so much negativity on the Star Wars sequels, because it took the iconology of something great and fantastic and really reduced it to something a shadow of its former legacy. It took a symbol rich in meaning and philosophy, took out all the meaning and philosophy, and claimed to still be the same thing. That is to say that the Star Wars sequels did not meet the expectations of the George Lucas Star Wars. And so now we go back to the Mario Bros. Movie. Did it have more nuanced characters than the Star Wars sequels? Kind of debatable. Did it have a deeper story than the Star Wars sequels? Again, kind of debatable, but I would say not really. And yet the same people who hated the Star Wars sequel characters and story love the Mario characters and story. Well, that is because of the expectation difference. Mario is a video game about jumping from one platform to another. Its world is populated with people with mushrooms for heads. You've got power-ups that serve as mechanics for in the game that don't make sense in a lore perspective. And to be fair, the last 20 years has actually shown interest in developing a Mario story with the likes of Mario Sunshine in the Mario Galaxy game. But at the end of the day, it's a game about a plumber jumping from one platform to another to try to save a princess of a people with mushrooms for heads. So the expectations of Star Wars versus Mario is completely different, and so therefore it's much easier to justify a subpar story, subpar character development in a Mario movie than it is in a Star Wars movie. Mario's a fun, lively video game, and that's what the Super Mario Bros. Movie really captured. It's the expectation of a Mario movie. It's why the Sonic fan base completely rejected the realistic graphics for Sonic and forced the industry to completely redesign Sonic to look more like his video games because of the expectation difference. And it's this expectational difference that I think is what Mario Galaxy 2 really captured on. Now, am I saying that Mario can get away with being lower quality just because it's Mario? No, I'm not saying that there are no expectations for Mario. I'm saying that the expectations for Mario are different than the expectations for something like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. If you're going to see a sitcom, you expect stereotype characters exaggerated beyond the point of any realistic, rational human being. When you go to watch war movies, you expect to see very grounded characters acting like soldiers in the heat of battle, doing everything in their power just to survive and accomplish the mission so that they can go home. Having a grounded, thoughtful person trying to make sure they make all the right decisions in a sitcom just would not serve the genre, nor would having a cast of idiotic buffoons with no common sense or self-preservation work in a war movie. You've got to play to the expectations of the media you're creating for. And what are the expectations of Mario? There have literally been musicologists study the Mario music and basically conclude that the main premise of Mario is fun. There is literally a psychology to Mario music to make the game more fun. And when you play a Mario game having a good time, there is kind of some expectations of some unrealistic stuff. You don't expect somebody to actually be able to jump as high as Mario does. You don't expect somebody as small as Mario to grab a giant dinosaur dragon turtle by its tail and swing it around and throw it 100 yards. Mario is goofy. His games are campy just in their very nature. And when Mario games do create a story, they're just kind of a fun little goofy thing that they throw together for it. And it's these expectations that I feel like the Mario Galaxy movie didn't just capture, but that they nailed them down perfectly. It took the vibes of the Super Mario Bros. Movie and turned it up to level 20. And that's what I mean by it being the greatest sequel that I've seen in a long time. It took what came before and built upon it. It went bigger and better than everything else in the one before it. The first Mario movie had a whole lot of great references. The second Mario movie had even more references, and really good references too. And this is something that I'm seeing some controversy on. Some people saying, oh, it's just nostalgia or baiting with all these references. But references aren't bad if you do them right. And I feel like Mario Galaxy did them all really well. I'm not going to go into any spoilers on this. Yeah, there were a couple times that a reference overstayed its welcome. Like the 2D bit definitely overstayed its welcome. The first time they showed Bowser Jr.'s screen, I genuinely chuckled and thought that was pretty great. But then as they kept flashing back to Bowser Jr.'s screen, and so you see more and more of this 2D representation of what Mario's actually doing, it really overstayed its welcome a bit. But that is a nitpick. There were so many references that had me cracking up. And without getting into any spoilers, there's this one character who just came in out of nowhere near the end, and how they brought this character in was absolutely brilliant and hilarious, and it fits so well. And just for a little hint of what I'm talking about, they definitely illustrated that very well of what it would look like in 3D. Now, there are also some genuine criticisms of the movie, but also some of these criticisms I'm seeing are really just blown out of proportion. Yeah, I don't like that they retconned Rosalina's story from the Galaxy game, which I do have to say, I'm not really appealing to nostalgia when I say that this was a great movie. I literally did not play Mario Galaxy until All-Star came out for the Nintendo Switch, so I did not grow up on Mario Galaxy. Yes, I grew up on Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine, but I was really phasing out of Nintendo when Galaxy came along. Now, I've also seen people say that Rosalina was completely wasted, that she had no screen time, she didn't do anything in the movie, and really, did we watch the same movie? No, she didn't get as much screen time as Mario or Luigi or Peach or Yoshi or Toad or Bowser, but to say that she got no screen time, like, yeah, most of her screen time was in the first act, but even when she was, without spoiling it, not all that active, she still got some screen time. I've also seen some people say that Peach was way overblown in this movie, that she was too powerful or whatnot, and what's crazy is I know what one scene they're talking about, the weird gravity casino thing, but outside that one scene, when you got scenes of like Mario and Peach running together fighting enemies, they're pretty balanced. That one scene in the casino with Peach, I just interpreted those as being a whole bunch of level 1 minions type thing. Like, those weren't exactly quality enemies to be fighting. If Mario was there in that scene, he probably would have been doing just about equally as well as she was. In fact, if memory serves me correctly, Mario and Donkey Kong did just plow through a whole bunch of enemies in the first Super Mario movie. Okay, so was Peach a little over the top? Yeah, she was. But again, it's a Mario movie. Mario's over the top, Luigi's over the top, Yoshi's over the top, and in these complaints about her being this I am woman, hear me war type thing, it's like I found the dynamics of between Mario and Peach being very wholesome. Like, there are times that Mario made brilliant strategic moves where she never spent time questioning him or like, I'm woman, why are you not doing what I say? It's like there are points that she trusted Mario's judgment and they let Mario make brilliant moves that I thought were really great moments, particularly on the bomb omelet escape, or when Mario locked a particular gate between him and Peach so that she could do something and he can stay and face a pretty grim threat. Those are both fantastic moments for Mario. I also saw some people say that Yoshi was reduced to babysitting Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. It's like, that was one scene. Then I saw somebody say that Star Fox was completely irrelevant to the story, and then I saw somebody else say that Star Fox completely stole every scene he was involved in. I'm like, which is it? Fox was absolutely fantastic. Now, it was a pretty corny, but yeah, at the same time hilarious when Toad is like, who are you? And Fox is like, please, no personal questions. This is my entire backstory. That was entirely dumb and yet hilarious at the same time. But no, Fox was absolutely fantastic. Almost every second he was on screen, I just had a giant grin on my face. He was so much fun. Although I will say, it does seem a lot of people agree that Fox was their favorite part of the movie. And pretty much immediately walking out of the movie, I'm like, there's definitely going to be a Star Fox movie coming soon. And I'm pretty torn on that, because if they do Fox exactly like they did in this movie, well, again, that whole expectation. I'm going to be coming into a Star Fox movie with a different expectation than I'm going to be coming into a Mario movie. And so I wouldn't be expecting Fox to be so over the top in his own movie like he was in this movie. And yet, if they introduce him this way over the top like they did in this movie, and then scale him back for his own movie, that's going to be a little bit jarring at the same time. So a Star Fox movie almost seems inevitable at this point, and it almost seems doomed to fail already, just because of, do we actually serve who Star Fox is in his own franchise, or do we serve who he is in this Mario-ized franchise? And there's just going to be pros and cons to either one. Which then, for getting a Star Fox movie We've got a couple Mario movies. We're getting a Zelda movie coming out. We've got a few Sonic movies. We got some Pikachu movies. I think a Smash Bros movie is definitely on the way. And I will be honest, I'm really excited about that. I think a Smash Bros movie, if done right, will be absolutely fantastic and is a good way to get them out of this rut of what do they do after Ultimate. Perhaps that's another video I could make sometime, is what can Smash Bros do after Ultimate? And I think a Smash Bros movie is really the way to get them out of that Ultimate rut. Because after all, how do you go above the everyone is here grandeur of Smash Bros Ultimate, and yet how do you repeat that? So it's nearly impossible to repeat it, it's nearly impossible to top it, and doing anything less would just be a disappointment. So let's call that the ultimate rut. And the question I think the community has been asking for a long time is, how do you break out of that Smash Bros rut? And I think a Smash Bros movie is really the key to that. And so I think a Smash Bros movie might be the perfect thing to revitalize the Smash Bros game franchise. And in the same way, a Star Fox movie could be the perfect thing to revitalize the Star Fox franchise. Hopefully they'll also include Captain Falcon at some point so that we can finally get a good revitalization of the F-Zero franchise. Now there's one final criticism of the Galaxy movie that I think is well merited, and that is that the pacing was so incredibly fast. And that is definitely true. Now, like, I know parents of young children who are always concerned about modern entertainment overstimulating their children, and yeah, the pacing of the Galaxy movie is literally so fast that if you're concerned about overstimulation of your children, then I would not recommend the Galaxy movie, because it is, just from the pacing alone, it is so fast of a pacing. And I do think that they should have slowed down the pacing of it. But I do want to articulate what I do mean particularly of pacing. I'm not really talking about just adding a whole bunch of slower scenes. I'm really just talking about adding a little bit of space to let scenes sit more. And this is again something I had a problem with the first Mario movie. It almost feels like every line of dialogue is pushing the plot forward in some way, and there's very few lines that is just the characters being themselves and enjoying their company with one another. And I do think that was more the case in the first Mario movie. Like, Mario Galaxy actually had more banter between characters that felt like them just being pals, but I do think both of the movies could have added just a little bit more filler dialogue in between certain lines, just to help the conversations feel more natural and organic. And then some scenes could probably just pause a moment to give the characters time to process and take in what's happened. I don't think the movies need a whole bunch of added scenes of character development. I think most of the scenes that they have just need to be expanded a couple of seconds longer, which with the number of scenes would create a slower pacing and add a few minutes to the runtime. So yeah, was it a perfect movie? No, I'd have a few tweaks here and there. Was it a bad movie? Definitely not. Well worth it? Absolutely, I'll say it is. Genuinely been a long time since I've had this much fun just sitting watching a movie. And although it wasn't a particularly deep movie with deep characters and deep philosophical meaning to it, it served the expectations of a Mario movie really well. So thanks for watching, and God bless.